Hi there, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name is VinPF, and on today's episode we're going to be going back to Islay. It's been a while since I've been to Islay, so apologies for that, but today we've got something a little bit special to make up for that. Now this isn't the latest release in this little line, but I'll just tell you a little bit about how I came across this in a little bit of luck. Now I've actually come across two whiskies by this distillery under different names. The other one I have for you, which I'll cover in a couple of weeks, I found in a tiny little off licence in my hometown Coventry. This one I found at a festival on the festival bar. I was actually helping them set up, and as I walked past it, I couldn't help but pick it up. It seemed like a good thing to do. It was about 50 quid at the time, so why not? But anyway, today we have a Bruichladdich. Now this is only the second Bruichladdich I've covered. I'm actually turning into a bit of a fan now. I don't know why I kind of missed out on them before. They don't really show up in the shops near me, the supermarkets and things like that. I don't have a whiskey specialist really near me. I have a couple of tiny little shops. So when I see these things for a decent price, it seems like a good thing to do. Unfortunately, this is discontinued now. You can still pick it up in the UK for about that £50 mark, maybe a touch less plus postage and packaging. So if you see it, might be worth getting. They're actually on the 2011 version of this now. This is the 2010, as you can see. In fact, up until 2010, they were using this yellow packaging, this yellow tin. Now they've moved on to a kind of grey, not quite black, but kind of grey. I don't know if that's what they're going to be doing from now on. But there's a couple of different brand names underneath Bruichladdich. Bruichladdich itself, it's kind of unpeated Islay single malts. Then they have like Port Charlotte, which is like heavily peated. And then they have Octomore, which is like uber excessive peat. Although I have to say, I haven't covered any Octomores on the channel, but I have to say I think the human taste bud has a bit of a threshold when it comes to ppms on peat. And I think anything over sort of 80 ppms is kind of irrelevant, but whatever, it's nice to see them pushing the folds and stuff like that. Now, about this whiskey specifically, it's a 50%er, about 50 quid like I say, we're all happy with that. But the best thing about Bruichladdich, in my opinion, is their almost complete parity on the information regarding the bottles. I have previously covered the classic Laddie. That is kind of like a huge batch release thing, so they have barcodes or little codes on them that you can put into the website and pull down all the information of everything that went into that specific bottle, and the batch of bottles I should say. That's pretty damn cool. This one here, they don't really have to do a code or anything like that because it's a single year release. Once they've released this, they don't make this again or anything similar to it. They kind of change it around each year. So you can go onto the website. I'll put a link to that in the description below if you want to get some real good information on this bottle, and you can see absolutely everything about it. Most of it's on the bottle and on the tin as well. If you're really interested in that, you can see there's a lot of words. I'm not going to read those off to you today, but a couple of interesting things. Obviously, non-chill filtered, natural coloured. We like that. The 50% ABV. Although it doesn't have an age statement, it has a vintage, the 2010. This was released in 2017, but it makes it 6 years just because of how the dates work on that. So, some people might be forgiven for saying a 6-year-old whiskey, 50 quid's a lot of money. Why should I spend that sort of thing? Well, let's listen to the rest of it and see what we've got. Now, they can trace the farms on these things, which is pretty awesome. So they actually label them here, and here. They're all over the place. You can actually see a couple of them there. There's 8 family-owned farms that they've taken this from. They can tell you the barley type, which is all on the website. They tell you the cask type, which is predominantly first fill ex-bourbon with a little bit of ex-French wine as well. Pretty damn amazing. I love that sort of parity. I wish more Scottish distilleries did it. There's no real reason why you shouldn't do it because you're not really releasing trade secrets to your competitors and things like that. Not when you're making real amazing stuff like this anyway. Why not? Let's get into the glass and see what we've actually got, shall we? Now, I don't mind talking about colour today because we know it's natural coloured. So it's quite light on the colour, but it has to be expected for a 6-year-old whiskey in Scotland. Obviously worldwide they can get a much deeper colour in 6 years depending on the climates and whatnot. Not here to talk about those. This is the one. Now, as I mentioned at the top, this is an unpeated Islay, so if you are into kind of non-peated whiskies and you've been afraid of the word Islay because you know that it's going to be a stinky peat, then this is the way to go. Stuff like this, Bruichladdich another great example. There are a couple of other examples, but again, digressing off the whiskey, let's get onto the nose and see what we've got. It's got a really good nose on it. I'll just say that right off the bat. It's nice and fresh and clean. very floral for me. It probably isn't a heathery note, but I kind of get this kind of floral heathery note. A touch of hay and malty, not a lot, but just a little touch in there to keep it interesting. Obviously no peat or anything like that. Let's get onto the palate. Now the ABV here is really kicking in. It's got a good 50% mouthfeel to it, good viscosity to it. Again, fresh and clean over from the nose. There is a touch of youth about it, but not in a bad way at all. It's very well balanced, well rounded. So you can get those kind of malty, floral notes that indicate perhaps a younger whiskey. But in this situation, not a bad thing at all. On the back end, it's quite peppery, I find. Lovely flavour, I like that sort of thing. That bleeds over into the finish, which is kind of medium. It's not like overly long, but nice and peppery to finish. So I think this is one of those like quality examples. Super well made. A lot of thought has gone into it. A lot of thought has gone into the back history of this. This isn't just like supply the barley, get it made. They've gone out to the farms. They've worked with the farms, asked them to plant a certain amounts at cost to them, to try and get the right sort of flavour profiles and see what they want to do. Obviously, sourcing cask types as well, using first fill bourbon instead of refills, maybe 3 or 4. That's what you get in kind of the really cheap whiskies and blends. This poor casks have been flogged to the ends of the earth. So yeah, it's a 6-year-old whiskey, granted. It is a little bit expensive. It's on the top end of my scale, that's for sure. But it's one of those things you've got to try at least once. This, if you're into the peated, we're going to be covering a peated one soon. I've got a Port Charlotte sitting on the shelf down here. You could probably just see the top of it there. So I'll be covering that not next week, but maybe the week after. We'll see how I feel about it. But that's another good one. So if you're into your peated whiskies, you want to check out Port Charlotte. Again, that's a 50 quid whiskey. So there's a lot to enthuse about with Bruichladdich, and I can't kind of enthuse about them enough. I've only covered them twice, so I'm going to cover them more and more and more as I get availability on getting these bottles. I'm going to try my hardest to get more and more of them because they really are good, and I want to bring these to you so that you can experience them and maybe try and convince you to get a bottle.